Welcome to the AI Applied podcast. I'm looking at Jaden's face. He is on location right now, so hopefully the background noise isn't too bad. Jaden, high level of difficulty for you, as always, but he's the podcast master. Check out his other podcasts. Also, by the way, check out AIbox.ai. It's absolutely killing it these days. He has these amazing sort of like tools on there that you can you pay $19 a month, you switch around, you actually can like test models against each other, you can create workflows, and now more interestingly to me, in a way, is this new marketplace where you can build tools and sell them potentially. It's just such a cool system, which Jaden led me to ask you if you wanted to talk about this next topic, because I'd never heard about it, right? Like, so I was sort of saying like, Jaden, tell me about this. Like, have you seen this? Like Amazon, might launch this like marketplace where these media sites can, sell their content to AI companies. And you're like, are you kidding me? I just did like a giant thing on that or something like that. So Jaden, talk to us about that, because I only saw the headline. It reminded me of you, and then you got your eyes like lit up when you wanted to talk about this today. So talk to me about it.
Yeah, I think this is fascinating. Amazon, they've just launched a marketplace. And what I will also say is they're not the only ones. Microsoft recently has launched one as well. And essentially, media sites are going to be able to sell their content to AI companies. And if you think about it, this is all stemming from a huge problem that Amazon, and let's be honest, everyone has had, which is getting access to the data to train these models. Amazon's kind of on the up and up, trying to compete and be a big boy in the AI model game right now. But like, let's look at the other players. Anthropic, I mean, they got a multi-billion-dollar fine because they just went and pirated every single book in the galaxy, downloaded it, and then when they were kind of getting caught, they went and bought physical copies of every book and had a robot flip every single page and take a screenshot of it and upload it to their like data center. So they're technically like, no, technically we bought every single book. And they got, and it was kind of interesting because the judge ultimately ruled that yeah, they could keep anything that was inside of those data sets that they had purchased the book, just like a person that was reading something and putting it out. So we have the roadmap basically for what you can do with this data. The problem is getting your hands on it legally and at scale. Of course, Anthropic just pirated every book in the world. That got them in hot water. They paid over $1 billion to authors. And now every other company is trying to figure out how they get around this same issue while still getting access to the data. I think this solution from Amazon is basically how we're going to have to go about doing it. And if you think about it, Amazon's the player with access to the most data, right? They're letting publishers sell it. But what does that mean? With Kindle and with everything on Amazon's ecosystem, like they have access to videos, music, and with Amazon Music, Amazon Video, and with the Kindle to publishing. So they have access to every type of content. They have this huge resource, but they can't really get it because they can't download this without permission. So they're creating a marketplace where I think basically all the content they already have, they're just like, guys, opt into this, let us use it. And they're also going to sell it to other people, meaning if you have written a book, you're going to get paid. You could theoretically, or I mean, through your publisher, whatever. You could get paid not just by Amazon, but by Microsoft and Anthropic and OpenAI and anyone else that comes to this kind of marketplace to purchase it. I think this is brilliant. I personally have been doing some interesting things in this space, but as an author yourself, Connor, I'd love to get your take on like, would you license your book to be used to train models, etc.?
I mean, 100%. Jaden, I'm so glad you brought this to my attention, this whole thing, because this is absolutely fascinating. Like, guys, just listen, peek behind the curtain here for a second. Sometimes Jaden will like pitch like 5 topics. And I'm like, Jaden, I don't care about any of that stuff. It's like, oh, this company just raised this. I'm like, I don't even know what that company does, right? So, so Jaden and I always like have these like battle royales behind the scene. We just, we're friendly with each other, I guess, enough. But for the most part, all we do is like argue about like what to sort of talk about. Jaden, this is a great one, sneaky, great, because this is the thing. What we have found is that everybody creates content. Not everybody, but obviously content creators create content, and not realizing that they are sitting on a pot of gold, right? Especially sort of like at scale. And that's the most amazing thing. So when Elon bought Twitter and turned it into X, I don't know if this is what he was imagining in any kind of way, but all of a sudden Grok, why is Grok so freaking good? Grok has a river of gold. I mean, like everybody else is sort of like run out of data, or they're just like, as Jaden was referencing, Anthropic sort of like stealing it and then having to pay everybody back. Which, by the way, I found my book on that thing, so I kind of got notified that like, hey, you can get money from Anthropic, which I don't really care. I don't know how much I'm going to get, like $12 or something, which is cool. But the idea here is like, okay, so if data is that valuable, Jaden, it kind of reminds me of this giant conversation happening all around the place between is it Daniela Amadei? Oh my gosh, I feel terrible about crushing her name, but Daria Amadei's sister, co-founder of Anthropic, obviously,
Yep.
Jensen Huang, uh, I think Mark Andreessen too. Anyway, all of them have been saying of late, because these things have been going viral. Listen, English majors, this is the future. And all of a sudden, people who felt like their degree or their whatever their self-worth was a little devalued in this way, in this time of like AI coding, are all of a sudden like, wait a minute, like you mean what I have is actually valuable? That is amazing. The fact that people have written, especially like people have like written a ton. These things like need what you have. It feels like the futuristic thing of like where, like we've gone to like Wall-E or something, like where like trash is actually valuable or whatever. By the way, not that everybody's content out there is trash. But
Ouch,
this idea, I know. Now I'm like just hurting my own kind here. But this idea is absolutely brilliant. Jane, you and I talked about like years ago, or it feels like it might have been 2 years ago or something like that. Like, is it a possibility that OpenAI would just, and this is when OpenAI was absolutely flying high, not that they're not now, but would they just buy the New York Times? Do you know what I mean? Like, would they just buy the Washington Post off Bezos or something like that, just because of sheer content? Like, they need that sort of like up-to-date content. They need that sort of like river of gold, which is data and just like new thoughts to train on. I mean, this is how models get better. And this idea that now that there's going to be a marketplace by Amazon, and who could pull it off better than Amazon, especially with Bedrock? If you know anything about Bedrock, Amazon's had an interesting AI journey, and I won't kind of go into it, but like they were very early on. They were about to launch, and then ChatGPT came out. They're like, wow, ours is not nearly as good as this. But Amazon behind the scenes actually has incredible models. And if you know how like cloud computing and just how cloud services work, they have their own models that will sort of like, help you with, internally with your enterprise data. It's just most of us individuals don't have that kind of data. Like we don't care about that. But Bedrock, what Bedrock did, and Jaden, I may have this wrong, but I think Bedrock was okay, apologies if I'm wrong. I thought they were the first one to do this, where they said you can use any model. It was pretty revolutionary when they were doing that at the time, right? Because I think Azure was sort of saying like, no, clearly only OpenAI.
Yeah.
Google Cloud was clearly saying like, no, only Gemini, understandable. But Amazon was like, well, we don't care. And that was very, very popular. AWS is huge. And so now, did it say they have something like 100 models or something like that? I might have misread that. But this idea that you can choose whatever model you want, and you can have this marketplace, and you can sort of like combine forces with everybody, because Amazon is the world's marketplace. Jaden, I'm obsessed with this idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, Amazon obviously has a massive advantage with AWS. It seems like their resources are really well lined up in a great way there. But I will say they're not the only ones doing this. Microsoft also recently launched what they called their PCM, their Publisher Content Marketplace. Basically, it lets publishers, they're like, hey, it's a new revenue stream, whatever. It's the same thing. What's interesting to me is that it's like all these huge companies, Amazon, Microsoft, I mean, these are the responsible adults in the room. So for whatever you could say about Amazon, like they didn't come out with a AI model fast enough, and Anthropic and OpenAI beat them. Okay, well, OpenAI basically admitted to scraping YouTube against its terms of service for their Sora model. Anthropic admitted to pirating millions of books. So could Amazon or Microsoft get away with these things that these startups were doing? No, not really. When you're the startup, you could be a little scrappy. People give you a slap on the wrist. They'll pass. Eventually, these companies are going to get to a point where they're just going to get in trouble. So they're not going to continue to do this anymore. But yeah, I think it's really interesting because these are kind of the adult players, Microsoft and Amazon and these big players. They have to find a way to legally get all of this content. And so I think these big marketplaces are absolutely genius, especially when they kind of already have a lot of connections to the industry. They might as well leverage them to get that. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a great thing. I recently had a company reach out to me. It specifically, they buy data for training audio models. They reached out to me about licensing my podcast content. And I mean, they're offering like a licensing deal where they'll say, look, we'll pay you like 10, 15 grand for just the audio files of your content. We're not going to train like a voice likeness of you. There's not going to be a voice clone. It's just general purpose training. And they'll go and sell that to Anthropic and Google and OpenAI and everyone else. And for me, like, obviously, I'm not going to sit there. I'm not negotiating with Anthropic or anyone else, right? So if someone wants to just pay me for that. And of course, the other thing I think what a lot of publishers feel, a lot of content creators, myself included, feel is like, I also could just like anyone could go and just scrape my whole podcast. Like you could just go download every MP3 file in a podcast with a podcast downloader. Like anyone can do that. So I'm like the bad actors, right? Like every AI model coming out of China is doing that. And so I'm like, if they're going to do it and someone's offering to pay me, I'm just going to take the money. And so I think this is really genius for Amazon, Microsoft, anyone else making these marketplaces. people are, I think, offering up, like, people want to get paid because they know it's going to get scraped for free otherwise. And
Mhm.
I think that it's a great way for Microsoft. So it really solves, and Amazon. So to get all the content. So I think it solves two different problems here, which I think is just brilliant.
It's brilliant, especially when you understand, and I don't have numbers in front of me, but the sheer number of like self-published books that come out every year. I mean, it's in the millions, right? It's because all you have to do is self-publish, and Amazon has made that really easy. There's a process where you just kind of like pay sort of like a certain fee, or maybe they take a certain fee or something like that. But it's actually really cool. So for all aspiring authors out there, you can just get your book on Amazon, which is actually pretty amazing. Get it on electronically. It costs you nothing. You obviously do your own publicity and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Jaden, I couldn't agree more. I think this is awesome. I think that this is exactly the kind of um, partnership that's needed, especially because there's a lot of organizations that have no interest in selling their data. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of organizations that are like, dude, quit sort of like, climbing up our castle walls to try to get the data and all that kind of stuff. So I think this is great. I think that there's this could be actually the beginning of a really interesting partnership, like what you're talking about sort of like these marketplaces that sort of like do this at scale and just pay everybody sort of like a certain amount, because people love creating content. And by the way, that's just going to happen more and more and more. Now, the big question as we're sort of like wrapping up is, uh how much of that, like if Jaden, if it's me, I'm going to put on my Jaden hat for a second. Here's what I would do. I'd get AI to write me like 15 Harry Potter fan fiction books, and then just like put them on there, and then all of a sudden I get paid for that, which now we're talking about the AI slop and AI eating itself and all that kind of stuff. So we're definitely entering that zone, guys. In like 10 years, just everything's going to be AI slop. I hate to tell you, but that is where we are. Just for now, though, like getting real people to write real things is super exciting. Uh, Jaden, I'm going to wrap it here because I know you are actually literally catching a flight. You are an absolute trooper. So let me give another shout out just to AI Box. Guys, if you haven't checked it out, $19 a month. It's absolutely revolutionary just
We
because.
actually have an
Yeah.
$8.99 tier we just launched too. So if anyone wants it for like $9 a month, you get 50
My gosh.
models.
Jaden, this is the crazy thing. Sorry, I'm going to spend 2 seconds on this. Guys, I spend hundreds of dollars a month on all the models just so I can compare them back and forth. Literally hundreds. If you are doing this, and I'm telling you, compare models back and forth, because between Claude, Gemini, and OpenAI, and I'd even throw some others in there, maybe like Grok and everything else. I'm telling you, this is what power users do. They compare models back and forth. I use different models for different things. $8.99 a month. You didn't actually tell me about that. That's actually incredible, guys. Just go check it out. I'm telling you, it's super, super worthwhile. Jaden, safe flight with the family. Thank you for making the effort. You are a trooper. And to everybody else, if you'd be open to leaving a rating and review, we would be so grateful. And we will see you on the next episode.